Hello everyone, this is Susan Giglio. I'm going to be giving instructions to Rebecca. She's going to be our model for this short flow that I designed for patients primarily with pelvic pain, but it can be used for anyone who just wants an easy flow that focuses on breath work. To Rebecca's right are some yoga blocks that can be used as props as needed, and we will demonstrate how to use the props during the flow. And then to her left are some yoga blankets. You can use beach towels, you can use any blanket in your house if you need to, and we'll demonstrate when and how those might be used to make the pose more comfortable. So Rebecca's going to start in a child's pose. We're going to have her extend her arms in the child's pose, and in this child's pose we're going to have her with her knees together and feet relatively close together. So Rebecca's going to fold down. Now, this is a good opportunity if your forehead is not reaching the mat for you to grab a block and put it underneath your forehead. And that can certainly make it more comfortable for your head and neck and shoulders. And then Rebecca's going to remove the block, and the blankets can be placed underneath the feet to bring the feet up a little bit higher in the event that the feet and the buttocks are not meeting. That can bring the feet up a little bit higher. And another option would be to put the blanket between the heels and the buttocks, or kind of in the fold of the knee if there's not much knee range of motion. You can also kneel on the blankets if you have problems with pressure on under your knees, on your knees. So lots of options here with the blankets and the blocks, but I'm going to have Rebecca remove the blanket because she doesn't need it for this practice, and just sort of get the props out of the way so that we can start. So back into the child's pose. In this position, it's easy to feel the breath moving in and moving out. And it's especially easy to start to feel where the ribs are moving in the back of the body. With the belly blocked by the legs, you're going to feel a little bit more movement in the ribs and in the pelvic floor. So Rebecca's going to breathe in and breathe out. And I invite you all at home to do the same. Really just starting to get into the flow of the practice and the rhythm of the breath. Notice that there are areas in your body where there's some tension, where there's spaciousness. Where does the air move easily? Where does the air move with a little bit of resistance? And especially noticing those areas of resistance, and see if you can find how to release into that resistance. And take 2 more breaths here. Just noticing, just witnessing. And then bring your hands, both of them, over to the left side of your mat. So a little bit of a side bend. Now, if you were using the block, you're going to have to bring it along with you. But we're going to stay here long enough to help you get into a stretch through the right side of the body. You can take your left hand and place it on the outside of your right upper arm. And then see if you can really press down into the right sit bone, into the heel. And see if that little self-assist brings you into a little deeper sensation in your body. And breathe in noticing areas of effort, noticing areas of ease. Try to find that middle place. It's just the breath moving in and the breath moving out. And then we'll walk your hands back to the center and all the way over now to the right side of the mat. First the breath, just the awareness. And then when you're ready, take the right hand and place it just above the elbow at that upper arm area and just gently pulling it just a little bit more over to the right as that left sit bone roots down into the left heel. Just adding a little bit of layer of difficulty, a little layer of stretch, a little layer of openness. And breathe in and breathe out. We'll take one more breath here. And then we'll walk both hands back towards center. Come back to awareness of the breath, back to awareness of the rib cage moving. Maybe able to feel the movement of the pelvic floor just a little bit with the inhale and the exhale. And then take your knees just a little bit wider than your rib cage so that your body sinks down just a little bit more between your legs. And now with your legs not blocking your belly, notice how the breath changes. Are there areas now that feel more open? Are there areas that feel less open? And then from this position, we're going to lift the hips so that the hips are right over the knees, but the head is going to remain down towards the floor. In yoga, we call this puppy pose. So it's like a downward facing dog, but we're staying on your knees. And then if Rebecca brings her knees back just a little bit, so they're right underneath the hips, this is a really nice pose to get into for prolapse, for anyone who needs a little bit of assistance with their pelvic floor exercises. We have gravity working with us here. So we'll do some breaths here where we inhale and exhale and squeeze the pelvic floor. Inhale again. And exhale and squeeze the pelvic floor. And we'll take one more breath here. And exhale and squeeze. Good. And then coming up into a tabletop position. Important here to get the hips balanced right over the knees and the shoulders and the elbows and the wrist all stacked. A little bit of an anterior tilt here because that's a normal postural adaptation. So Rebecca's going to imagine that she's bringing her tailbone up towards the ceiling. Just a little bit of a curve in her low back. Perfect. Good. So now notice the breath. So we'll just take a couple of breaths here. See if you can make sure that the belly's relaxing. It's going to allow that full range of motion of the abdominals and the pelvic floor and the rib cage. And then Rebecca's going to allow the belly to drop down towards the floor. She raises the tailbone up a lot and raises her head up towards to look up at the ceiling on the inhale. And then on the exhale, there's going to be a tightening of the pelvic floor and tuck under. She brings the crown of the head down towards the earth and the tailbone tucks under. So inhaling, allowing the belly to drop, allow the head to rise, allow the tailbone to rise. And then exhale, pelvic floor tightens, tuck everything under. And we'll go 3 more times. We're just working with the breath. Remember, the breath is like the conductor of the symphony here. It decides when everything moves. So everything is moving around that signaling from the breath. So go one more time, inhaling, and exhale, tighten and tuck. Good, and then coming back to a neutral spine position. Rebecca's going to bring the hips back towards the wall behind her, but she's going to keep the tailbone pulled up towards the ceiling. So a little bit of an anterior tilt remains as she brings the hips back behind her to the wall behind. Here's an inhale, and then an exhale. She comes forward back over her wrists. Good. And then an inhale back. Exhale, squeeze the pelvic floor and come forward. Then I'm going to ask Rebecca to move her hands just a little bit more forward towards the blankets, maybe another inch. Okay. And then inhale back. Squeeze the pelvic floor, exhale, come forward. This time go just a little bit past the wrist as she comes and working towards a plank. Good. And then inhale back. And exhale, squeeze, come forward. Good. And come back to a neutral spine and take the wrist another 2 or 3 inches forward. And now inhale, she's going to come back. Exhale, squeeze, come forward. Now she can tuck her toes here and lift her knees into a plank. And she can hold that plank as long as she likes. We'll start with 5 seconds, so go ahead and lower the knees. And we'll come back on the inhale. Exhale, squeeze pelvic floor. Tuck the toes, come up. So while she's holding, she can still inhale and exhale. She just will not release her abdominals and her pelvic floor and drop the knees. Go one more time. Inhale back. Exhale, come forward. Tuck the toes and lift. And then drop the knees again. We're going to lower down into a prone position, so lying on the stomach. So Rebecca's going to walk the hands forward and slide onto her belly. Good. And then crossing her arms, she's going to rest her forehead on her forearms. And start to notice the breath again. So with her stomach, her belly area fully supported, where does the breath go? Can she feel it more in her back? Is there more movement of the pelvic floor? And then removing her arms and placing her hands right underneath the shoulders. Forehead's going to go on the mat first. And important here is that the elbows are drawing in towards the midline, the shoulder blades are drawing down the back, and she's going to press through the hands and lift up into a cobra. So an inhale here, and an exhale as she comes back down. Good. We'll do 5 of these, just working with the breath. So those of you who are following along at home, notice how the breath makes the body move. Not the other way around. And this is her last one. So she's going to come and she's going to rest with her right cheek on the floor. Arms are going to come down by her side, palms up. And come back to awareness of breath and awareness of how her body feels against the floor. Noticing what feels good. And then turning her head to the other side to get an equal stretch. And spending time for 2 or 3 breaths here. And then bringing the hands right under the shoulders again, rolling over onto the back. Arms going to stay down by the side and the knees are going to be bent, feet flat. So bridge pose is an excellent pose to work with opening up the front of the body. There are some things that happen in bridge pose that we like to minimize, and that's overusing the glutes as the prime mover. So when you think about a bridge, you want to think about how there is a beginning and an end to the bridge, and that all of the structures of the bridge on both ends and in the middle are working equally hard. So one thing that we can do is take a yoga block and put it between the knees. We use it on the smallest size, and that actually activates the adductors, or those inner thigh muscles, a bit. But it's also going to keep her from rolling her knees out to the side, which would be overusing her gluteus maximus. So with the block between her knees, Rebecca's going to go into a bridge by pressing down with the shoulders and the arms, pressing down with the feet, and inhaling her hips up. And exhaling them down. And then coming up a little bit higher on the next inhale. And exhale. And we'll go 3 more times, just working with the breath in and out. And on that next exhale, see if you can tighten the pelvic floor right before you move back down. Inhale up. Squeeze pelvic floor, exhale down. Let's do 1 more of those just for fun. Inhale up. And exhale down. And now removing the block from between the knees. Bring both knees in towards the chest. 1 at a time. There we go. And then start to make some circles with the knees to the right. And see if you can time this with the breath. And then we'll go to the other direction. So coming around to the left as you inhale and exhale. So making sure it's slow and methodic. And then coming back to neutral spine, we're going to keep our hands on that right knee and keep it drawn into the chest. And the left leg's going to flow down as far as it can go. So if there needs to be a little bend in it, that's great. If it wants to be flat or it can be flat, that's great too. So notice how this stretch is different. And breathe into any areas of tightness. And breathe out. Your left leg is struggling to stay straight. Again, I invite you to bring it up just a bit so there's a little bit of a bend in it. And maybe some of you need to put more of a bend in it. That's fine too. And then taking your hands behind your thigh and raising that right foot up towards the ceiling. And we're going to point and flex. You can see that Rebecca has quite a bit of flexibility. Good. And then bending the knee again, bringing it into the chest. And bring the left knee back up to join it. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and let the right leg slide down the mat. Find a place where it can rest comfortably. And we want the leg to stay in line with the body. We don't want the leg rolling out to the side. So if you need to keep a slight bend in it, that's fine. If you want to try to straighten it out, that's fine as well. So breathing in and breathing out. Coming back to an awareness of where you feel tightness, where you feel resistance. Notice if the breath changes. See if you can get back into that rhythm of breath. And then when you're ready, take your hands and put it underneath your thighs and go ahead and straighten out your left leg towards the ceiling, pointing and flexing. You can make circles with your feet. Notice what feels really good in this moment right now. And then bending the left knee, bring the right knee in to join it. Both legs we're going to hold underneath the knee now, like so on the backs of the thighs, and stretch both legs up towards the ceiling. Now some of you may have difficulty doing this, and this is a great time. If you have a yoga strap or something like that, it's great, but I like to just use a robe belt. Something that's cloth and long and slender that you can loop around the balls of the feet to get that extra stretch. And you would hold it in your hands and bring it around the balls of the feet. So just notice what you feel. Another option for this pose would be to put the legs up against the wall and breathe in and breathe out. Pointing and flexing the toes, making some circles with the feet is always an option. And then bringing the knees wide around the chest. We're going to bring the knees down towards the floor on either side of the chest. And then take the arms inside the knees and grab the outsides of the feet. stacking the feet right on top of the knees so that the knees are drawing down towards the floor, but the feet are right over the knees. And so in this position, your belly is free to move, and there's a really good openness of the pelvic floor here. So as you breathe in and as you breathe out, see if you can feel those pelvic floor muscles move with every breath. It's a great opportunity to squeeze the pelvic floor on the exhale here. And feel for that relaxation and that lengthening on the inhale. We'll take one more breath here. And then with your hands where they are, see if you can guide the soles of your feet together. The elbows need to move out of the way and the knees come out to the side into a butterfly pose. Lots of times we do the butterfly pose in seated position, but this is a great option for those of you who struggle with this pose in seated and have trouble like maintaining your spinal alignment. And in this position too, we're getting a really nice stretch of the inner thighs. See if you can take a moment to find the muscle that would bring the knees out towards the sides of the room while still keeping the soles of the feet together. And see if you notice that that enriches the stretch through the pelvis, through the pelvic floor. And then see if you can find the muscle that would pull the tailbone very gently down towards the mat without moving anything. So it's an energetic pull of the tailbone down and of the sit bones out to the side. So a widening of that pelvic diamond as you breathe in and as you breathe out. All right, take one more breath here. And then release your feet gently down to the floor. Knees in line with the hips, feet in line with the knees. Notice your breath. Notice the movement of the belly. Notice the movement of the rib cage. Notice the movement of the upper chest and sternum. And then bringing both arms out to a T, a Y, or goalpost position. We're going to bring the knees over to the right side first. And again, noticing the breath as it moves in and moves out. And we're going to stack the knees on top of each other now. And take the right hand and see if you can give yourself just a little bit of an assist there to pull your knees even closer to the ground. And notice how that really opens up the front of the body from the left shoulder down to the right knee. Nice sling of muscles there, just really opening up as you breathe in and breathe out. Take one more breath here. And then as you come back to center, you can bring your right arm back and bring the knees over to the left, stacking the knees, and then bringing the left hand down to give yourself an assist on that side. And breathe in. And breathe out. Using the breath in this final pose to calm the nervous system. Getting you ready for the final pose, Shavasana. And then bringing the knees back to center. You can straighten out one leg and then the other. Legs are going to come a little bit wider than the yoga mat. Arms down by the side with the palms up. In yoga, we spend the last few minutes of class in Shavasana, or our resting pose. Shavasana actually means corpse pose, and so this is where we just practice not doing anything, which is really hard for us as humans. Options here would be to put a bolster underneath your knees, and there's other options as well. But the most important thing is that you stay supported and stay relaxed throughout. But the focus here is not on breathing, and it's not on doing anything. It's just simply being. Being still. And allowing the richness of the practice to work its magic. And you can stay in Shavasana as long as you like. When you're ready to come out of Shavasana, I'm going to invite you to just start making some small movements with your hands and with your feet. Maybe moving your head from side to side. And then rolling over onto your right side, wherever you're ready. Just take your time getting there. Pause and absorb all of the good feelings that you feel right now. Notice all the good feelings. When we stop, pause, and really take notice of what we're feeling, it starts to become part of our neural matrix. Starts to become part of our brain chemistry and who we are. And then come back up to a comfortable seat, just using that top arm to press down. We'll come back into our easy seat. Again, coming back to breath awareness. And bringing our hands in front of our heart center into a prayer, Anjali Mudra. In yoga, we like to say Namaste at the end of class, which means the light or the divine in me sees and recognizes the light or the divine in you. Namaste.